Welcome to Flow of Miracles Reflective Moments. And today I'm continuing the series about childhood. So don't forget to listen to the first part of the series before listening to this one. And today I'm talking about childhood development. We as human beings all go through stages of development when we are children. If things are going well, we turn out to be well rounded adults with no childhood wounds and having all the skills we need to be responsible, happy adults. Of course, this is the ideal circumstance, and that almost never happens, which is why I am doing this series to help people heal childhood wounds and check out where they need some more development that they missed, and also to help them feel like well rounded adults. So, the first reflective question is: did you have problems at certain ages? When we look at childhood development, each age has a certain set of growth goals that we would like to meet. For example, when we're babies, what we really need is to have our needs met and to have responsive parents. When we turn between 1 and 2, we're learning how to express ourselves for the first time. We're learning our words. We're learning to discover the world a little bit with crawling and walking. They don't call it the terrible twos for nothing. This is when we learn more about our own will and choices. 3 is more about discovering the world and interacting, learning how to share and be social, etc., etc. Of course, the general stages about being a teenager and finding your way in life and becoming a young adult and dealing with peer pressure are well known, but each stage has their own growth goals. And it's very important to check if you had problems at certain ages. Maybe you were ill, maybe there was stress in your family and your needs weren't being met at a certain age. Maybe you felt like you couldn't do the growth goals because things were happening in your family. You see it quite often that, for example, if a mom or a dad is very ill, the child does not want to discover and work towards their own growth goals. They become more pliant, they become more silent, they try to help the family and forget about their own needs. Also, if there's a sibling, you see that happening too. They want to help the family, and so they ignore their own needs, or sometimes they start acting out, just trying to be seen. There's a lot of literature about being the glass child, the one who wasn't ill and therefore is kind of see through. So, if that was your experience, I highly recommend that you look into that because problems at certain ages mean that certain growth goals usually aren't met because our needs weren't met because we were not able to do that. So, whether that's childhood illness, whether that's trouble in the family, divorce, illness, a sibling being born, uh, relocation, moves, deaths in the family, these are all usually problematic in our own growth process, in our own development. So if you're looking back at your childhood, try in the timeline to see what happened in certain ages and find out what the growth goals are and if you met them. This is a good idea to see if you had problems at certain ages that need to be healed. Then the second reflective question is: did you grow through all the stages? When we have attentive parents who are able to meet our needs, most of the time, we usually grow through all of the stages. We learn to regulate our emotions. We learn how to express our own will. We find out what our own preferences are, and we learn to build a life for ourselves with guidance of others and the support of loving people around us. If you have problems with emotions, you can, of course, listen to the emotion series. And if you have problems with balancing, you can also check out the balance series. But for now, the reflective question is about if you grew through all the stages. Maybe you didn't because you got stuck as a teenager and you noticed that you're still in a kind of fight with your parents or in a kind of fight with authority. Maybe you noticed that you never learned how to set healthy boundaries because you turned very pliant, very people pleasing, and you know that you need to do something about that. And you never did find the rebel within you. Maybe you notice that you are still scared to explore things because you miss that base of safety and trust in yourself and others. So, thinking through all the stages that children grow through, it's very important to see if you got stuck somewhere. And it's very natural that that happens sometimes, but it's, of course, our responsibility to start healing that. And last but not least, do you feel like a well rounded adult? A lot of times I speak with people who do not feel like they're well rounded adults. They feel like there was something missing, and because of that, they were never able to build the life they wanted. They have trauma, which means that they have trouble building in certain areas of their lives. Maybe they never saw a healthy relationship, so it's hard to build a healthy romantic relationship. Maybe their parents were very isolated or isolated them a lot. And because of that, they have trouble building their social life. Maybe they have lack of trust in themselves and they have troubles in their career or studies. When we are a well rounded adult, we can take responsibility for building the life we want. We can take responsibility for our emotions. We can see where we're self sabotaging and actually problem solve. If you feel you're not there yet and you're not a well rounded adult, it is really a good idea to look at your childhood development, to look at childhood healing, and to look at your own inner child, which, of course, I'll be talking about in new episodes of Reflective Moments. The reason why there's so much childhood behavior that actually follows in adulthood is because it's really tough sometimes to grow up. It is very natural to kind of want to be this Peter Pan person who never grows up and only gets to play and have other people take care of you, especially if there's been a lot of childhood pain and we never got that pampering, we never got that nurturing. There's this wish as an adult to get it in a different way. And that different way is usually very painful because we start being codependent on our friends, on our family, on a romantic partner. If that's happening for you and you feel like you're not a well rounded adult because you need somebody else to take care of you, that is definitely something you need to work on because friends will complain that they're not your therapist, that they're not your mom or your dad. A romantic partner will burn themselves out trying to take care of you because we do need to take care of each other, but not in a codependent way. And children need a lot from their parents. And that is natural and normal because they do not have the capacity yet to be a well rounded adult. But if we do have the capacity to be well rounded adult, if we do have the capacity to grow and turn into that adult, that means that other adults definitely have less patience with us when we do not act like a well rounded adult. When instead of taking care of our own shit, we are asking other people to keep on doing that. When we don't own our own responsibilities, other people will definitely point that out towards us and will reflect back to us that we need to go and act like an adult. So there's no possibility to build long lasting, healthy bonds with friends, with family, with a romantic partner, or with our own children if we are not a well rounded adult. That means that those bonds will always be strained and can cause a very painful fracturing, meaning that we feel very abandoned and we feel very alone and we feel very unlovable if we do not own our own shit. So I highly recommend that if you recognize any of these things that I just spoken about, to actually listen to the rest of the childhood series. And don't forget to leave a comment if you like this series.